I'm having a great talk with, well, a friend who goes back. We don't see each other except once every decade, maybe, or something like that, but goes back
Only
a
on Skype.
long,
Only
long,
on
long.
Skype.
Only on Skype, yeah, but
Uh,
we have memories. James O'Neill and I, Jim O'Neill, from a long time ago. I am very pleased. This is going to be a very unique interview and a very unique production coming up at Rubicon Theater in Ventura. I want everybody in Southern California to take very special mark of this interview. It's fascinating from beginning to end. Not me, Jim O'Neill. This is quite a story. Uh, we are talking about, well, first of all, let's just get some things clear. Jim O'Neill and his wife, Carolyn Burns, co-founders Rubicon Theater Company back in 1998. Keep that in mind, everybody, because there's a connection. In Ventura, they're now in their 18th season in Ventura. They are about to produce a one-person play by David Rintels. Am I pronouncing that right?
that's correct.
Okay, do we do the W?
Well, he does. It's in the program printed
Okay,
that way. So,
okay. The play is Clarence Darrow from 1974, one-person show at the Rubicon Theater. By the time this interview goes up, with the way we have it planned out, we will be going up one day before opening night of Clarence Darrow on Saturday, May 28th at 7 p.m. at the Rubicon Theater. That's opening night. The play runs through June 12th. Ticket prices range from $25 to $54. Plenty of other things, group rates, good rates for military, all that good stuff. It's a play. It's a piece of American history that you should, all of you out there should have a look at. Rubicon Theater. Let me run it through again. Through June 12th. Opening night is Saturday, May 28th. Tickets 25 to 54 bucks. And let me get down here to the Rubicon box office phone number. Everybody get out your pens. Area code 805. This is the box office at Rubicon Theater in Ventura. 667-2900. This is really going to be special, and we're going to talk about it. This is the Clarence Darrow, and Jim, you'll give us a better run through, I'm sure. But Clarence Darrow, this is the man who was a great human rights attorney. He had so many important cases, and the play is Darrow looking back on his long and extensive career. Am I close?
yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. And he lived and worked at a very pivotal time in the history of the world, in the history of this country, going from an agrarian society essentially before the Civil War. He was born in 1857, died in 1938. And really, in that time, almost every modern invention that you can think of, from flight to automobiles to really the internet that we live with today, is just an extension of the telephone. All these things going from an agrarian society to a mechanized society. And naturally, someone had to have ended up at the center of many controversies and fights over the rights of workers, and in as the world is changing in that way, and he did, and it happened to be him. And so it's a very pivotal time in our history, and he's a very pivotal character.
And there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more. Our guy here, James O'Neill's great grandfather's first cousin was Clarence Darrow. And I have seen the press photos of you in costume for this one-person show. Uncanny.
Yeah.
Uncanny.
Well, he's a relative, and when when I was growing up in the late '50s, early '60s, and my mom, he's my great grandfather on my mom's side of the family. My mom's sisters and brothers would come over visiting, and there was inevitably some way his name always came up because he's the famous person in the family, and very proud of that connection. And so I knew that from the time I was a little kid, that I had that connection with him. And then in 1974, I was at Cal Arts studying acting, and Henry Fonda.
You and me both.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And Henry Fonda took this on. It was the very first one-person play. Hal Holbrook had done his show for years, the Mark Twain thing. And I saw that show, and he was wonderful in it. But it wasn't really a play. He walked out as Twain, of course, with the wig and the whole thing. And he stood behind a lectern and essentially did what Mark Twain had done back in the day on the lecture circuit, on the Chautauqua circuit, and talked to the audience in that way. So it wasn't really a retrospective or a dramatic presentation in that way. But this was the very first attempt at making a one-person show, have that drama as at the heart of it. So I became aware of it then. Henry Fonda, I think, did it in L.A. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it then. But I was aware of it because, of course, I knew that I was related to the man and curious about it. And then flash forward 24 years, and we start the Rubicon Theater Company in 1998. And we needed a drama in our first season, but we were building an audience. We didn't have a lot of resources at the beginning. And so we needed something easy, something that we could do quickly without too much expense. And a friend of mine named Tobias Anderson was doing this show out and around that Carolyn and I had worked for, and he lived up in the Pacific Northwest. And I called him and I said, could you come down and do it for us? And he said yes, which was great. I said, what do you need? He said, give me a desk and a chair and I can do the show. And I said, perfect. That works out. And we got a grant from the city of Ventura to use the city council chambers in what is now the city hall, but used to be the county courthouse or the city courthouse up on the hill. And it still looks like a courtroom. And they allowed us to go in there for a few performances, and it's about 100 or so seats. And we were building an audience, didn't have a lot of people coming at that time, so it was a perfect venue. And he just went behind the rail and used the desks and chairs that were there, and he did the show. And so it had already been directed by a friend of his, but she didn't come down with him. And so I gave a little bit of additional direction, is what we called it, to stage it in the spaces that we were going to do it in. And so I became more intimately connected with the play at that time. And I thought, I was 46, I think, then. And I thought, well, not now. But someday I'll be old enough, maybe, and this might be something for me. So I just kind of kept it in the back of my head for all those years, and now is the time.
Yep, and you are artistic director emeritus at Rubicon for about a year now, right?
Yeah.
And this is for very, very exciting reasons. But the point is, this is the perfect opportunity to get back into acting. It's been a few years. When was the last time you performed as an actor there?
3 years ago, we did Our Town, and I played the stage manager, and that was the last time I was on stage.
Yeah. So this is really special for not only for the Ventura community, but for all of your professional colleagues all over Southern California. I mean, this is a must see. Come on now, it's a must see.
We'll see it. We'll see.
Let's see. I read that I love Rubicon Theater. I love that space, and your production team always immerse the audience in sound, in visuals, in the most amazing little sets. May I say that? Because my memory is always there. This little set is tucked into a corner of the theater.
Yeah.
Now you got to do it in the round.
It's not tucked into the corner this time, though.
Yep.
Use the word unique. Of course, there are a lot of other one-person plays now,
Sure.
Been written since this play. But I personally had, I know that Kevin Spacey, he was the last to do this show in a big way about a year and a half ago in London. It was one of his final things at the Old Vic before he left that theater. And he did it in the round. And I think that was the first time that this show was done in the round. But it's the first time I've known of any one-person show in the round. And we're doing it the same way. So we've got a platform coming out from the stage into the audience. We've moved some of the seats from the front few rows up onto the stage so that you're surrounding me, and I got to keep moving so that everybody can get a look at what's going on. But it is unique in my experience. I've never seen a one-person show in the round. And it's been a lot of fun trying to figure it out.
Trying to get it to work, trying to make it.
Yeah. I think it is. I think it's going to be exciting. Nobody's more than 5 rows from the stage. So it is going to have that intimate feel that you talk about.
Also, first time at Rubicon in the round, yeah? That'll be the first production.
We did a show years ago called Songs for a New World. And it was not exactly in the round. It was sort of all over the theater. There was no real stage. There were set pieces all around the theater. There was a bar. There was a coffee table that they danced on in the middle of the house. There was other positions that they took, and it's a musical. So it really took place all around you, but it wasn't in the round like you said in that way. So yeah, in that way, it's the first that we've done. Yeah.
And you are emeriti artistic director for a purpose. Tell me what is going on. I read this in your stuff. Developing new works for commercial productions as president of Off-Broadway Across America. Give me that story, please.
Off-Broadway Across America is another company that Carolyn and I started. It's another not-for-profit. Most of Off-Broadway now, in the last 10, 15 years, has gone to the not-for-profit model. It used to be people would try to make money off Broadway, but the houses are very small, and it's very difficult to do that in the smaller houses. So a lot of off Broadway has gone to not-for-profit, and so we had been doing several shows that we have ended up in New York. We did another one-person show called Wiesenthal, about Simon Wiesenthal, which was just there last year. My show, Lonesome Traveler, went to New York just last year. The Best Is Yet to Come, which was a review of Cy Coleman's music, went to New York, and we premiered. And so we've been doing, and now we have more things coming down the pipeline in that way, new plays, new musical things. And we thought, well, this is kind of happening, and we really need to focus on it. So we started this other new company, called it Off-Broadway Across America, made it not-for-profit so that we could relate to any particular not-for-profit that we might be able to go into off-Broadway in New York. And then the idea is to develop these things, but for the regional theater markets, as Off-Broadway has contributed to over the years, obviously. And have our own production company that can do that. Either do the whole show for someone, or license it and that sort of thing. So about a little more than a year ago, I sort of stepped back from the everyday operation of the artistic side of Rubicon. Carolyn is now the producing artistic director. I still do things and show up at rehearsals and talk about the art and with all the people we work with, but I also am working on pushing these other projects forward, and I can't say that Clarence Darrow might not be one of them. It's a one-person show. It's not that hard to take around, and we do have some relationships with New York theaters. We'll find out whether that might happen for this show too. But there are already 3 or 4 things that we're working on in that way, and there will be more coming in the next few years.
Very, very exciting. And Jenny Sullivan is your director, as she has been for so many productions at Rubicon. And the shows that I have seen, all of your productions have been absolutely stunning. I'm sure this is going to be absolutely an all-inclusive immersion into this man, Clarence Darrow. Give me just pop a couple highlights of this extraordinary American's career, and then
the thing that he's obviously most known for, almost every 15-year-old kid, by the time you get to the middle of high school, about the Scopes monkey trial, which was tried in 1925. It was a test case in in to challenge a law that had been passed by the Tennessee state legislature that you could not teach evolution in the public schools. And so Darrow was hired by the ACLU, of which he was one of the founders, by the way, near the turn of the century, to go down there and try this case and try really to put the law on trial. Inherit the Wind, the great play and movie, is based on that trial, and the names in that play are changed to protect the innocent, but but they represent Darrow and William Jennings Bryan, who was there for the prosecution, and it's a great play, and a lot of people know that play and that trial. But there are so many others from the early 1890s through about 1910. He was labor's great champion and tried most of the important labor cases, including the anthracite coal strike in Pennsylvania, where he was able to get a commission, which was set up by Theodore Roosevelt to examine child labor in the workplace and all of that, and got child labor laws passed, and the 8-hour day is because of Clarence Darrow. Up to then, miners would work 12, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, and for peanuts, and in very difficult conditions. So he started that whole movement at the turn of the century, and was at the center of it for many, many years. And then also he famously tried many murder cases. He was very famously, throughout his entire life, adamantly against the death penalty. He tried 102 cases where men faced the death penalty, and none of his clients was hanged or killed as a result. And the most famous one, right before the Scopes trial in the early 1920s, is a case of two young men, the first thrill killers, is the way they were talked about then. They did this killing just for the fun of it, and of course everybody wanted their heads, and their names were Leopold and Loeb. And he got them both life in prison instead of being hanged. And it was a big case at the time. The movie Compulsion, which stars Orson Welles, is based on that case. And interesting about that case, because it's a horrible story of these kids doing this awful thing, and everybody wanted their heads. Everybody wanted them to die, and they went to prison. One of them was killed in prison some 10 or 15 years later, and the other one, the one who was more the instigator of it, of the two, was serving out his time. They were both extremely intelligent kids. They were around 18, 19, 20 years old at the time of the crime. And they were extremely intelligent. When the other one in prison started a school for the prisoners, and all the time he was in prison, 30 years or more, he taught school for the prisoners, and many of whom were paroled and got out, and it made a big difference in their lives. When he was finally let out of prison, he was paroled in the early 1950s, I think. He went to Puerto Rico, and he started a school there, and touched many lives then after that. So whatever anybody feels about the death penalty, there's an example of a young man who, as we know, most of the violent crime in this country and other countries is perpetrated by young men. Young kids from 17 to 24 years old. So it's even though this particular crime was particularly heinous, it's not unusual, given their age, that it would have been them or somebody like them, somebody of their age. And yet, some way or another, after all this was said and done, he made, some significant contributions. After he had paid his debt.
Now, let me just interrupt. We're running a little bit out of time here. We're talking about Clarence Darrow, we've just had a little rundown of some of these great cases at the turn of the last century, the turn of the 20th century, late 19th, early 20th century, when the oligarchy was in control totally, and Clarence Darrow was instrumental in, as you described, the 8-hour work week, all these wonderful things that were brought into statute, if you will. Now it's 100 years later, and we have the whole same damn thing coming up all over again. How pertinent is this play?
So many things that this play talks about that we're going through again. And one of my favorite lines in the show, and there are many great lines, so I'm not giving away too much by repeating this one, but he said he's talking about some bad thing that happened. And he says, history repeats itself. And then he says, that's one of the things wrong with history.
Yeah, here.
So, but here we are,
And so I don't think it can be any more pertinent. This play, also the connection that you have, the familial, if that's the right word, probably not, connection. It's all really fascinating. And let's just run down the details once more. Director is Jenny Sullivan, very well known, wonderful director. The play is Clarence Darrow. By the way, how does this script flow? I mean, David Rintel's wrote what, The Defenders or something, the TV series?
Yeah, he worked on The Defenders, which was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, with E.G. Marshall, and the script is really well structured. It takes us basically from his early childhood through, chronologically, more or less. It skips around a little bit here and there, but more or less chronologically to a point somewhere around the late 1920s, some 10 years before his death.
Yeah, amazing. One-person show by David Rintel's Clarence Darrow, being produced at Rubicon Theater in Ventura. Let me give you the information, all of you out there in Southern California that are watching this. We have opening night on, actually it will be tomorrow night when this video airs, Saturday, May 28th at 7 p.m. The show runs through June 12th, so there's plenty of time to inquire at the Rubicon Theater, get some tickets, come up to Ventura. Those of you in Southern California, come up, have a meal, have a good time, and then watch this very incredible play. Play with where we get a chance to see James O'Neill acting again, artistic director emeritus of Rubicon Theater Company. Tickets, $25 to $54. It's a gift, really. Phone number, all of you in Southern California, the area code for Ventura is 805. The telephone number for the Rubicon Theater box office is 667-2900. The play, one-person show, Clarence Darrow. The actor, a relative of Clarence Darrow, James O'Neill. Great seeing you. Wonderful. I hope I can get down and see this. This is going to be special.
You will, yeah. I hope.
All right. Thanks very much, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Bye-bye.
Okay.